All right, y'all. Welcome to episode 3 of the Dickie and Donny podcast, 3 of 450. My name is Shawn Stinson, co-host, aka Dickie, here with Donny. Brandon, I'm at the beach this week, so the kids are on spring break. So I'm in the
Man,
the high country. You're in the low country. I'm in the high country of
we got
Outer
the whole
Banks, North
country.
Carolina.
Yeah, we got the whole country covered. That's what that means.
We've covered it with
Spring
Business
break.
on Purpose.
So
Yeah,
why are
spring.
you working on spring break? What,
That's a
tell me about
great
that.
question. I did take yesterday off. We did some
Okay.
fishing and golfing.
That's right.
But you know what? Client calls, happy to do the work and, do it on location. So not too bad.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Spring break. My kids' spring break means they're at home with us. They're not old
Oh,
enough to go do
right.
anything, so it's just harder.
It's just all
But
all
that's
in all the
okay.
time.
That's part of life. That's part of life.
Yep. Well, we're on core values and talking unique core
UCV.
values,
You
UCV
you down
today.
with UCV?
I do.
You don't know the song?
No.
You down with UCV? Yeah,
Oh, you down with UCV? Yeah, you know me.
yeah,
Yeah.
you missed it
Unique
though.
core values.
Yeah,
I
Sean and
didn't
I
I didn't
we prepare a lot of this beforehand.
This isn't
Clearly.
completely
So,
scripted. Yes. So you down
hit
with
me with it.
UCV, core values. Everybody's got core values: service, excellence, kindness,
Respect.
respect.
That's
That's
right.
critical, right? If you got those core values, you're ready. What
False.
is it about core values that are so critical to doing good business, Brandon?
Well, I'll take a step back to answer that question. We use terms and we use them a lot at Business on Purpose. I think a lot of people define them differently, but vision for us is a snapshot of where you want to go. That's the destination, right? I want to go to the high country. Well, if I leave my driveway and turn left, there's no guarantee I'm getting there, but it's the vision is where we want to go, right? GPS, where we want to go. Every step we want to take us there. The mission is kind of how we're getting there, what we're doing. Like what are we doing? Well, we exist to liberate business owners from chaos. So our vision might be to have 15 coaches across 10 states. That's not what it is, but you get what I'm saying. It could be the destination of where we're going as a business. But the purpose or the mission would be, hey, we exist to liberate business owners from chaos. So that's kind of the propellant, the fuel of like, well, this is what keeps us going. And then your unique core values, we say, are the guardrails, right? Keeping you from getting off course. If that's the destination, we need something that across the board we can use as a filter to keep us in line, thinking if I'm driving north, I shouldn't drive south. And at times there could be, we call them profitable distractions or the opportunity to make a quick buck or the opportunity to be like, man, this person's awesome. I don't have a role for them, but I'm just going to bring them on at the rate they want to be brought on in. And then all of a sudden you're
Seen
not
that.
going closer to your vision and you didn't use core values. So core values are important because they act as a filter for hard decisions, both internally and externally. They
Mm.
also allow you to leverage yourself. People don't buy similar, they buy different, and unique is different. So we want to be unique in all of this. So yeah, I think that's the importance of them. And it also,
I love it.
we'll
Yep.
probably talk a little bit about this. Like if I'm the business owner and you're my employee, right? If I'm not present, if you know our core values, you now can use the same filter I would have used to make decisions. So as an owner, having these allows your team to kind of tap into your brain and your mind. So there's a lot of value, no pun intended.
100%. And that's what I said last week. If you've got great core values and your team knows your core values really well, you don't need to have 100 steps on how to do your job because it's very clear. This is our core value. This is how we
Yeah,
operate. Core values are so powerful because it's both internal and external.
right.
Externally, if you're a builder, this is how we build. This is what you can expect of us. Internally, well, this is how we build and this is how we treat our clients. So
Yeah.
it keeps your integrity in that your office reflects
Mm,
your field or your internal reflects your external and you're not, saying one thing to one people and one thing to another people. And to me, that's the lack of integrity you don't want to have as a business.
sure. And I think you mentioned builders, and I know we work with a lot of contractors, builders, and construction, but I have a couple clients that are not in the construction space, not in the building space. I mean, their core values have changed the game for them, right? I have one that's in
Hmm.
retail and internally within her store and within the people that work in her warehouse and all that, like their core values have allowed her employees to make great decisions when she's not there. Obviously,
Hmm.
with high-end retail, the way things look. Well, one of her core values is simple, clean, classic. I may have butchered that, but it's close to that. So it's literally, hey, if it's simple, if it's clean, and if it's classic, we're good with it, right? And it
Beautiful.
works. And then I have a couple ladies that own some hair salons, and they have an acronym for HAIR, HAIR, honest, accountable, integrity, and responsible, or whatever it is. Every day they have to give an example of how they held their hair value. And it's like they just have used it. And then they also have to mention one core value to their customers every day while they're in the chair styling their hair. And it's like,
No kidding.
even outside of construction, we got some people doing really cool things with this uniqueness around it. So,
Yeah, hair
um,
values. I love that.
I
That is
know.
awesome. That'll preach. That's cool. Well, how else have you seen core values? So you said in your storefront, your retail, you've seen
Right.
it in service and hair service. What other ways
Yeah.
have you seen clients use them well?
That's a great question. I have a couple that stick out right away. And I think you would agree a really good core value is one that you as a business can leverage internally. Like, how do we motivate our team to stay on task, and how do we motivate our team to stay vision driven? But also, you can like leverage it externally to get customers more interested because there's something different about you, because you're leveraging, you're not like, oh, one of our core values is responsibility. Nothing wrong with that. Everyone should have that, right? We say
Mhm.
that while we're in Ron's, like communication,
Respect,
respect.
honesty,
Yeah,
integrity. Yeah,
like
and
those need to
tax fraud.
be baseline human interaction values. So what makes you unique are not those things. So I have a builder and he does a really, really good job with this. We worked really hard on his core values, and there's one specifically that he uses all the time because he'll do some high-end custom work, some spec. He's kind of all over the map, but one of his is memorable adventure. And you're like, oh, sure, like, yeah, we're building a house. But he is clear in the before, like in the pre-construction process, hey, this is not a vacation. This is an adventure. You will have moments in the build process where we're in the adventure, we're on the mountaintop and you can see and it's beautiful. And then we'll get everything roughed in and you feel like we're not making any progress for 3 months, and you'll feel like we're now at the bottom of the mountain. Nothing's beautiful. It's hot, it's sweaty, but regardless, we're doing everything we can to make this a memorable adventure. And it just is
Mm.
manufacturing those expectations on the front end of, hey, not a
Mm.
vacation. You're building this home for $3 million. You expecting this to be perfect. It will not work that way. There are going to be times when you're like, they're dropping the ball. We want you to know we're not, but we still like, and they do parties for the hard moments, right? When they're like, man, everything's boring. They host a party in the house that's not finished yet. And everybody has to wear a hard hat while they eat their cake or whatever it is. Like, they do things to make it memorable along the way. And they also use that internally. They do a lot of fun things as a team. And the kind
Mm.
of if someone brings an idea, hey, can we do this? Well, do you think that would allow us to like create memorable adventures together? And they're like, yes, okay, we're doing it. Like, that is a
Great.
filter. Or
Love it.
hey, can we all like get lunch tomorrow? Well, we're all in separate places. Well, can we get lunch with the work card? Man, it doesn't really help us create memorable adventures when we're not all together. So probably not tomorrow, right? Whatever it would be.
Mm.
That's one example of a builder who's doing it really, really well. And he's got 4 or 5, and they leverage all of them really well. But that memorable adventure one is great for the expectation piece of internal and external.
Yeah,
So
absolutely
yeah,
love
do you
that.
have any examples that stick out of ones that were like,
So I had a client that they had professional design and service were their core values to start. And I started pushing them a little bit. And I said, tell me more about design, tell me more about service. And the owner said, I said, what do you want people to say about you? He said, I want them to say, when can you come back? And I said, that's your core value. When can you come back? That
hmm,
is the epitome of service. If your service is so good, your renovation, you're clean, your people are professional. If your service is so good, that's your core value service. When can you come back? To me, grips me. It's got more bite to it.
yeah,
So if I tell my employees my core value is when can you come back? What does that mean? Let me tell you about it. The other one he had was professional design. We changed it to you need a water heater at the early stages. Yeah, I know, right? The early stages of one of his processes, he put this giant tub. Do you like taking baths? You seem like a bath guy.
I'm a big guy. It's rare to find a bathtub that's comfortable, but
If
sure.
you could find a bathtub, the grapes and the, Diet
Candles
Coke
and the
and
bubbles and
Jack. Yeah, okay,
yeah,
yeah. I
and
think
the
we can
cups.
get into that. I'm not a bath guy personally, but he
You
was
set
building this
what?
really
You set me up. Whatever.
I'm just not a bad guy. He was
Okay.
putting this giant bathtub in, and he told the client, he said, "Listen, you're going to need a bigger water heater." And they're like, "No, it's fine." He's like, "Okay." Sure enough, one weekend they're like, "Hey, I can't fill up my bathtub," and he's like, "No kidding." So professional design is you need a water heater, thinking ahead of your customer, thinking ahead of your client, knowing that down the line they're going to need something else. So
Yeah,
design has a purpose of better service, better experience for the customer, that they don't move into their brand new renovation, brand new
man,
house, and they're taking lukewarm baths. Like,
that is
how we can't
so
do that.
good. Yeah, that is so good because you even think of like in sales, right? Which you could argue throughout the whole build process, or if you're a hairstylist, the entire time until that person is finished, like you have to sell what you're doing, right? To some extent. And
Mm-hmm,
in
mm-hmm,
sales, to be able to say, like, hey, can I tell you, like, hey, we got to do this. I don't think we do. Actually, one of our core values is you need a water heater. You don't really need a water heater, but we've been here before, and you are
Let me
going to
tell you
need
what we've seen.
you are going to need
Hmm.
some extra backsplash for this reason, or the cabinet with the
Hmm.
over whatever, right? All construction people are like, he's
The
an idiot.
overlay's got to be
Sure,
this, yeah. And
overlays. I said
I had
overlay.
another client that was really into swag, and one of their core values was wear the company T-shirt. And so they wanted to represent their brand. They wanted this image to look really clean. Well, if my core value is wear the company T-shirt, I'm thinking all of my actions are reflected day to day. So when I show up at the job site, if I'm not clean, if I'm not on time, if I
Yeah.
haven't communicated well, I'm reflecting back on this company poorly. And so if my core value is to wear the company t-shirt, be proud, be forward in our work, that directs so many things in an employee handbook per se.
Well,
And I'm quoting on, if you're not doing the Spotify, if you're not watching the video, if you've got, all these show up at 8, tuck your shirt in, you can have 100 things that you're telling people to do, but wear the company t-shirt captures a lot of that.
yeah.
And you can filter people through that.
Well, when you think of a core value, right, you could say the same thing to not make it unique. You could say professionalism. And you're like, yeah, one of our core
Right.
values is professionalism. That's why we always have our shirt tucked in. It doesn't move the needle with anybody because they're like, well, I'd want you to be professional anyways. But wear the
Of
company
course.
t-shirt, like, is the same exact core value, but wildly unique. And you can just, even you think of the little fun things you can do. Hey, we're going to come do a visit. We gave you all the shirts. Like, feel free to wear your Shawn construction shirts. Like I'm pumped. We're gonna wear ours. Like one of our values is wear the shirt. Let's take a picture at your hat. What? There's
Dude,
so
we
many
we
things you
both
can
got
do.
the shirts on, bro. We got the matching shirts on
Wear the
today.
company
Love that.
shirt. That's right.
Yeah.
That's
I'll
right.
filter that off YouTube.
This year's a small, right? Yours is a small.
Extra, extra small. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shawn and I are built different for those of you that can't see
Hmm.
our bodies. But well, we hit on that. Shawn, what is the importance of them being unique? Is it wrong for someone to have the Enrons of the world, the respect, and I'm not meaning to like shame anybody, but is it wrong
No,
for
not at
them
all.
to have that?
Not at all. I think that we are so focused on infusing these core values into your business. So if you've got 4 killer core values that are like integrity, honesty, yada, yada,
Hmm.
yada, you use them at team meeting, you're using them at check-ins, they're communicated on a monthly basis on a newsletter. Owners are sending videos about this is our core value. Let me show you how a team member did this well this week. If you're pushing that through your business, I'm happy with that. I personally just find more value in it. So I got
Yeah.
another production builder who he is a hustler. Every time I talk to this guy, I'm like, he is running full 100 proof octane. And one of their core values is grit. And it was like, you got to
Ooh,
be a dog. You got to be a dog to work here, meaning like, we're here to work, we're here to grind.
right.
And their CFO was running an interview a couple weeks ago. And he realized this was one of our core values. And somebody literally said in the interview, yeah, that's not me. I'm not going to do that. And he was like, this was so great that we
Yes.
filtered through these core values. And this person self selected out of the interview process because they said, I don't want to do that. That's not who I want to be. And so,
Ooh,
so cool to align before you've even made an offer to somebody, you know that you're bringing in the right DNA and the right people to be a part of
man,
that work.
that is so good. That's part of that uniqueness, right? Because if you were to throw out professionalism, everyone's like, yeah, I get it. And you're
I got
like,
that.
yeah, but wear the
Yeah.
company shirt. Ooh, but I don't want to, I don't know. I don't like
I
you.
don't think I want to be
It
about
taps
that.
into that.
Yeah.
I've said this before, a well-defined, we say culture is man-made, right? Nature is God-made. I didn't make a tree, neither did you. Might have planted one, but never made one. But culture, it has to be fabricated, right? You think back to the science, like it has to be fabricated. So what do we want it to be? And it's funny you said that because I say this all the time is a clearly defined and executed culture. Like, hey, this is what we want to be, which is a lot based on core values. A
Mhm.
clearly defined and clearly executed culture within your team will self eject, will cause the wrong fits to self eject. So, like
That's right.
that, this is not me. Right now, you
That's
have to
not
be
me.
diligent
Hmm.
of like, hey, wear the company shirt. You're not doing it. And like, yeah, if they're the wrong fit, they'll self eject. You probably won't even have to get rid of them because they'll be like, we're not the fit. And especially, this is not about hiring process, learning to leverage these very first in the hiring process so that people immediately can be like, I don't care what the
Hmm.
job is. I don't care what the salary is. I can't work at a place like that. That is gold. You might have the
Yep.
exact opposite. I don't care about the job. I don't care about the money. I want to work for that place. Great. Both of those are really helpful. So I have a story
Hmm.
of I have a guy that bought a company, big building company. They did a lot of work and he bought it. And his goal when he bought it, he said, it's working. I need to not screw it up. I need to just like keep gas in the engine and let it continue to work but he bought it from somebody else. So we started working together and he realized like, if something's off, but I'm not sure what it is. It's not working like it used to, even though we have more work and all this stuff. And he was afraid to make it his own. So when we worked on core values, I was shocked at how hard it was for him because he's like we communicate. Can I say communication? And I'm like, you can, but it's not unique. But like, do you want to just say we finished it and throw some word? Like we weren't sure. And a year later, this was a couple months ago, he came back and I got an email from him and it was like, hey, it was like one of those 10 p.m. emails on a Sunday night where like this dude, you could tell he's in the midst of some sort of crisis.
He's in it.
And all it says is core values. And he said, don't answer tonight, but I want to know your thoughts. And they were work hard, play hard, undeniable commitment. The journey is everything. Give as much or more than you get. And then he responded the next morning as like, never mind. I think those are too unique. And I was like, no, no, no. Like your team will, like, those are you. And he was afraid to make his company his because he wanted to honor the previous owner. And sure, like there's a lot of value there. But he shared the first core values a year ago and he said, dude, it didn't, my team crickets. He's like, it was embarrassing and all this. And I was like, well, stick to your guns, man. Do what you got to do. And then he came with these and he said, I presented them in a meeting and every single person was like, that's who we've been the whole time. We just didn't have words for it. And it was like, that's what we needed. Like, make them you. Because his theory was, are they too unique? No.
Right.
They're not.
Yeah.
They're different. And that is what's going to allow you and your team to actually leverage these things to go get business and to go keep on this vision and to keep on the path. So the importance of the uniqueness, we don't just call them core values. They have to be unique.
Yeah. Well, and I love that because, there are, Lencioni talks about in the advantage, there are aspirational and there are actual core values. So when I work with companies, they'll say, this is our core values. So, yeah, that's right. Here's 5. What's your 6th? Is there an aspirational core value that you'd like to push into your culture? So I do that a lot. What have you seen? So somebody's listening to this, we've got like 12 listeners, my mom, my dad, your dad. We're doing great with this whole podcast thing.
Continue.
So we've got 11 core listeners. And oh man, that's so great. No one's going to get that except you and I. No, it was not great. All right. So we got 11 listeners. If somebody wants to push core values and start these core values and get these into their business, what would you say to write these? And then what would you say to begin to kind of live these out?
Sure. So a couple things I don't want to pass up on what was just said. One, you said Lencioni, and my mind immediately went to Eruzione with the Miracles, the USA team for the Miracle. So I thought of that and just how great that halftime speech was and our pregame. It was amazing. Great movie. You should go watch it if you haven't already. The second one is that I think we have more than 11 listeners, but maybe not. So here is where when we coach, right? Business on purpose coaching is not, hey, where does it hurt today? Let's talk about it, right? That's more kind of the consultant route. No, we have this proactive roadmap and we can do our sales pitch with you sometime. We're pretty proud of it. It works pretty well. So we can give you that at some point. But when we get to core values, for us, we would argue there's at least one prerequisite prior. You think of classes, you can't take Calc 2 till you take Calc 1. So for us, core values have to at some point follow what we consider our vision story, which is not about this, but vision story is where you identify, not in a paragraph, not in a sentence, but in a 6 to 7 page document of what do I want for this business? What's the destination we're going? And I don't know about you, Shawn. So often people don't know what that is, but we walk them through it and we just keep asking why. I want to go away for a week a year. Just 1 week? I don't think 2 weeks is attainable. I think it is. And you're like, you just keep probing and getting, and then you get that. And where we start with core values is I pull up the vision story and I'm like, hey, I'm going to read through this. If you see anything that sticks out to you, or if you see a theme, like if you see the theme of respectful, like ideal client culture, if you see the word or the theme respect 3 or 4 times, let's highlight it and put it. We literally do a word bank. And it's like, okay, we put respect, and then grit is great. I have some people that have that idea of like, I just want workers, man. Like, I just want them to come in. I don't care if their shirt's tucked in. I want them to be sweaty at the end of the day. Great. Like sweat. And we just kind of create a word bank based off their vision of key words that they've used to identify where they want to go. And then we kind of start putting some of those together, right? We have someone that works on docks, saltwater docks, and one of their core values is stay salty. And yeah, they're rough around the edges and they work in salt water. So anytime we can play these on multiple things. So I'll take 3 or 4 words from the word bank and be like, hey, these are all kind of combined. How can you get one unique core value, like wear the company shirt, And how do you get one unique core value? And then you have to learn to leverage that. You have to train your team to leverage all four of these different things in that one value, right?
Awesome.
So for us, a work worth doing is one of BOP's core values. I have used that a million different ways. Someone's like, "Hey, I don't think I'm big enough for y'all." Like, hey, on our end, you may not fit our perfect ideal client, but from everything you've said, this is a work worth doing, which means in my filter, the business is more than willing to coach you. Let's make it happen. Or when someone's like, "Hey, I have something going on. Can I move this to this date?" Or, "Hey, can you be flexible here?" Hey, because of what you're walking through right now, that's a work worth doing. We'll absolutely switch it. So there's so many ways to leverage a core value. So the
That's
way
great.
I recommend starting is create a word bank. What are the things that are important to you and your business? And we use things like thesaurus.com or whatever, just Google
Mm,
thesaurus and click the first link.
it's
We
a big
use
word.
that and just try to think of unique words because you want to grab somebody, right? We exist to liberate business owners from chaos. That's our mission. But every time I say it in front of someone, they're like, "What does that mean?" If you can get that question, what does that mean? You're in because you can take that wherever you want to take it.
That's going from your 5 second to your 30-second pitch.
That's
So
right.
we often will do the 5:30, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And if hey, we liberate business owners from chaos, what does that mean? Let me give you the next 20
Yeah.
seconds. And
Right.
I'm drawing you into the
Yeah.
work we do. I love
Your
that.
core values
Okay.
work the same exact way.
So
Yep.
word bank, number one.
Yep. Word bank. And it sounds elementary and it kind of is. That's like the whole point is get this word bank, start here. You only want 4 to 5. It's not that there's any magic there. It's in there is a limit to how many things your team can memorize. That's why our mission statement,
Mhm.
we want it 15 to 12 words, 12 to 15 words, right? Like the memorizable phrase is important
Mhm.
for what we're going to use it for. So with core values, we don't want 4 or 5. I have a couple that have 6 and it's fine. I have a couple that have 3 great ones and it's fine. But that 4 to 5 seems to be that range. We'll take this word bank of 15 to 20 different ideas and words. And I will in the spreadsheet that we use, I'll just start highlighting like, hey, you have family and togetherness and all this. And like, hey, these 3 that are in green kind of go together. And then I put them in a line and I say, hey, before we find the term, the stay salty, the memorable adventure, give them the guac, right? Is another like before we get that cool little phrase and word, I want you to define what this means for you and your team. And make them do an internal definition, your team internally for our business, for Shawn Construction. This is what it means. Sorry, Dickie Construction. And for,
Dickie construction.
that's right,
Yep, that's
external
right.
for the clients of Dickie Construction, like old Donny over here. What does it mean there? And I make them define it just with a sentence, nothing crazy. And even in the definition, they're like, "Oh, but I actually really want it to mean this." That's the gold. Perfect. Let's talk through that. And you just start compiling, let's get some of these words grouped together and throw them in a box and define them. And then once we have the definitions, I mean, you can use thesaurus, you can use ChatGPT to just throw in ChatGPT, hey, here's a definition for a core value for a building company called Shawn Construction. Can you give me 10 words or 2 to 3 word phrases? Like you can, and have it spit things out. Don't just steal one of them, but take one and be
Hmm.
like, "Ooh, I really like this term." Like one of mine is get crafty is one of his because everything changes on the job because they're working solely primarily with HOAs. So they get there
Hmm.
and the president of the HOA is there and he's like, "Yeah, but I don't want it to look like that." And it's like, "But this is the plan." They have to get crafty all the time.
Hmm.
So
That's
for us,
great.
we were looking at terms and it went through like 8 reiterations and eventually he found the word crafty and he's like, "That's it." And he's like, "Okay, well, what do
That's
we
great.
match with that?" Right. So we combine words, define them, find the phrase that would best fit in a unique way that definition. And that's kind of it. That's
Cool.
kind of
Word
it.
bank, definitions, phrase.
Yep.
I love that. I've got a bunch of clients that have similar ones like small things aren't small or continuous improvement. Like I've got
Yep.
of my 20 clients, those are the similar ones that go
Yeah.
throughout. Small things aren't small is a great one. Little things matter. Like these
Yeah.
kind of ways of doing things, I think that are it's good to be descriptive or
Yep.
discreet about this is the way we do things. And
That's
multiple
right.
people can have that, but the combination of those 4 or 5 is what is going to make y'all unique. So
Yep.
anybody, if I hand you an elevation and a blueprint, you could build a house just like I could, but I'm going to build it in a different way, right? Like there's a certain way I'm going to build it.
Yep.
It's going to be probably crooked and you're going to build it straight because
That's right.
because you're a baller framer and I'm not.
As part of you're just from Charleston. All the houses lean a little bit, but
That's right. It's historic.
that's
It's
right. It is
historic.
historic.
That's great, Brandon. Well, We've done this with a lot of clients. I will offer you this. One of the ways we've helped clients is doing workshops with unique core values. And so
Yeah.
we can spend 2, 3 hours with the team, Friday morning, Friday afternoons, once we've done coaching for the week. We love doing this. We can sit down and work through where's your vision, where's your mission, what are your core
Yep.
values, how are you uniquely wired to do the work you're doing? Because
Right.
again, custom home builders, you can all be custom home builders, but you're going to do it uniquely in your city, in your way that reflects your personality of your owner and the personality of your team. So I would offer, we do that. We'd be happy to talk to you more about how to set one of those up. Brandon, is there anything else that you wanted to chat through on unique core values?
Let me just ask this question real quick. How do you handle this? Have you ever had a business owner that's like, hey, I really want to include my team as we make these? And if so, how do you handle that?
So I just had a production builder out in Northern California I worked with, and the team was 2 owners and a general manager. They
Okay.
are amazing, wonderful, wonderful, just thoughtful. We built these core values. We did their mission. We did their vision. We did core values. And then I ran a workshop with their team where the owners shared what we had worked through. And they asked the question, if these were absolutely our core values, how would this affect your work? So you're in design,
Mm,
you're in production, you're in sales. If you adopted these, how is this going to change the way you operate or change the way you work with people? Most of the people said, you know what, this is pretty good. We see this is great. And they
yeah.
were so affirmative because they had spent months working on this and crafting these statements. But then when
Yeah.
we worked through it with the team said, yeah, makes sense. Like if the team says, uh, if you
Yeah.
get that kind of feeling, that's not a core value, or
Right.
that is a core value, you're just not living up to it.
Right.
So if you get
Your
the,
culture is not being
uh,
executed. Right.
that's the test.
Right. That's why I ask, because I'll have business owners that are like, I really want, or someone has a great idea. And it's not that we're opposed to ideas. The reality is, if you're Shawn owning Shawn Construction and I'm Donnie working for you, you don't want me to set the core values because I could leave at any second. Like
Hmm.
if this construction company hires me for double the salary, I'm gone. So it would definitely worth getting input. You want your team to be able to buy in. And there's some leadership pieces there of how to get people to buy in. But that's why I asked the question because I've had owners that were like, I really want my team to do this for me. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't
Wow.
think you do because if someone's attached to Get Crafty and that someone leaves, now we're all stuck with it. So
Hmm.
they need to be the owner who's like, hey, this is my vision and these are the core values I need my company living by because I'm not going anywhere. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why I asked that question. But no, that's good stuff. I love some UCVs.
Hmm. Man, you down with UCV?
Yeah, you know me, baby.
That's right. Well, Donnie, thanks for another excellent episode of Dickie and Donnie Do Business, hosted by Business on Purpose. If
Nice.
you have questions about building a business that can run and grow without you, or if you want to talk unique core values, feel free to reach out to us, businessonpurpose.com, or you
That's
can
right.
email us, Shawn, SHAWN, at businessonpurpose.com, or Brandon, BRANDON, at businessonpurpose.com. We will be back next week with a surprise guest.
That is right. I am looking
Do
forward
you
to it, Dickie.
We are super excited. We've got a list of 4 or 5 people we've talked about bringing on the podcast. So next week we're going to bring one on. All right. Peace out, y'all.
See
Do good
y'all.
business, do good work, and we'll see you next week.
Deuces.